Begin. So we're going to now tour through the eye for the a&p1 class here at SUNY Canton. The first structures we have are the extrinsic eye muscles. There are 4 rectus muscles which all come straight back off of the eye. We have the superior rectus on top. We have the medial or lateral rectus on the ear side. The medial rectus is on the nose side, which on most of our models can be discerned by the presence of this lacrimal fossa on the bone part of the nose. And finally, the inferior rectus, which on the bottom of the eye runs straight back, and on many of our models you can see the long extension of the inferior rectus. There are also 2 oblique muscles. On the top of the eye, we can see the superior oblique, or at least the tendon of it, in these white stripes. And on the bottom of the eye, running sideways across the eye, are the inferior oblique muscles. Now if we look at the surface of the eye, we can see the white sclera, which makes the visible white of the eye, and the clear cornea, which forms this bulge on the front of the eye. If I now go into the vascular tunic of the eye, we can see the choroid, which is the brown structure, the ciliary body, this white ring. Do remember that it was also visible on the poster as the muscular extension. We can see the iris, the colored part of the eye, and the pupil, the hole in the middle. We finally get further into the eye, and we can now see the retina, which is this pottery colored structure we can see. And at the back of the retina is a small pink circle, which on your video will have an upside down number 13, I believe. And that small pink circle is the macula lutea. The center of the macula lutea has a sort of a dot, which is the fovea centralis, which you cannot see on the model, but you could see on the poster. Also at the back of the eye, we can see this yellow optic disc located inside at the back of the eye. Looking at the bulk of the eye model, we can now see the chambers and segments. This large plastic ball represents the posterior segment, and this posterior segment contains the vitreous humor. From the posterior segment to the cornea is the anterior segment, which is full of aqueous humor. The anterior segment is divided into the anterior chamber, which goes from the cornea to the iris, and the posterior chamber, which goes from the iris to the back of the lens. The last structure we have left on the eye is the optic nerve, which is this yellow extension we see coming off the back. Switching over now to the ear, we have our model of the ear. For the external ear, we can see the auricle or pinna, the cartilaginous part of the ear, and the lobe, the fatty dangly region. The external acoustic meatus is the channel running into the ear, and it ends at the tympanic membrane, this small white circle that we can see. The next part of the ear we come to is the middle ear. The middle ear occupies the tympanic cavity, which is from the back of the tympanic membrane up to where this bone here hooks on to the inner ear. So basically the space between my fingers right now. There are 3 small ossicles, or small bones, found within the middle ear. We first of all have the malleus, which is the bone that's actually attached onto the tympanic membrane. We next have the incus, which is this L-shaped bone, which joins to the malleus. And finally the stapes is this small horseshoe or stirrup-shaped structure that we see. The stapes sits on top of something called the oval window. So if I could remove the stapes, which I can't, we would see the oval window underneath. A last component of the middle ear is the pharyngeotympanic tube, this tube that we see running down towards the nasal cavity. That brings us to the inner ear, which is represented most superficially by the osseous labyrinth, which is all of the white you can see as I try and obscure the remaining parts. The osseous labyrinth is divided into 3 regions. We have the vestibule, which is this lump in the middle on which the stapes is located. We have the semicircular canals, these 3 rings of bone. And finally the cochlea, the snail shell shaped structure that we can see. If I go to the bottom of the vestibule, we see a small dot with the number 14, and that structure is the round window. Now this osseous labyrinth is hollow, and the inside of it would be filled with membranous labyrinth. Unfortunately, we can only see a small portion of the membranous labyrinth on our models, represented by the cochlear ducts, shown in brown in this cut in half section of the cochlea, which I can now show. Now, unfortunately for you guys, there's a little more detail to know. I can pinch what I'm calling one lobe, if you will, of the cochlea. And in that lobe, we can see 2 brown cochlear ducts and 1 red triangle. The top brown cochlear duct is the scala vestibuli, and the bottom cochlear duct is the scala tympani. Both those brown ovals are filled with paralymph. The red triangle is the organ of Corti, and that red triangle is filled with endolymph. A few more structures to go on the ear. First of all, if I can put the ear back together, we have the yellow extension coming off the cochlea, which is the vestibular cochlear nerve. And that yellow extension, it comes through a hole, which is the internal acoustic meatus, allowing the vestibular cochlear nerve access to the brain.